Welcome, everyone. Tomlin, welcome. So, we will be practicing for about 25 minutes, and some people might find that intimidating, but don't worry. We'll be here the whole time. It won't be silent. You'll have plenty of guidance, and it'll be fun. Sound good, but it feels different. Well, listen, that's somewhere deep in your heart, and I hope that that difference is good. It's positive. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything different in the settings, so we'll see how that goes. Excellent. So, folks, finding a nice, comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit, meaning stay still. But, of course, you're not in meditation detention, at least not yet. After we meditate, we're going to chit-chat, and if anyone has any life challenges they'd like to talk about, we can jump in there. And yeah, that's the general breakdown. So let's see. Okay, excellent. So folks, as you're finding your nice comfortable position, you can arrange the body so that it will be able to maintain the position for the duration of the sit. If you're not used to doing this, I would suggest either maybe lying down if you're not too sleepy, or arranging the body so the knees are lower than the hips. Pardon me. So the knees are lower than the hips. This allows the lower back to stack on top of that, and then allows the spine to create a nice balance there. I am realizing I sound a little hoarse now that you mention it. I hadn't noticed that. Okay, so find that nice comfortable position. And when you're ready, we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. We're going to sweep through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. So starting at the top of the head, relax the brow. Relax the muscles behind the eyes. If the eyes are not closed, feeling free to close them now or allow them to rest on one point. Relaxing the muscles behind the eyes, allowing the eyes to fall just a little bit towards gravity. Allowing this relaxation to spread to the face, causing it to go smooth. Relaxing the back of the tongue, and allowing the jaw to fall slack, no need to hold it closed. Relaxing the shoulders and the upper arms. the elbows and forearms, the wrists, and relaxing the hands. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. And noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Noticing as we sweep through the body that we're observing these different parts, these different pieces, creating an overall effect of general relaxation, general body awareness. So relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips and the upper legs, the knees and calves, the ankles, and relaxing the feet. And now moving from individual parts, beginning to open awareness to include all of our bodily activity. Before we were selectively attending to particular parts of the body and relaxing them. And now we're selectively attending to all of this together as one large field of sensation. And what we're going to do is simply observe the mind as it moves between either a particular part of the body, where attention shrinks down to a particular sensation, or all of the body's sensations as one large pool. If we'd like, we could use mental labels, using all or part. And each time we notice a part, simply beginning to notice it within the field of all of the other experiences, letting it melt back into the whole. So for instance, if I am drawn to the sensations of the hand, that's fine, it's not a problem. I might mentally label part, noticing the mind has created a subsection of my sensory experience, and then zooming out to include the rest of the body's sensations. So that that individual piece can be subsumed into the larger whole. And if it arrives there, we can simply say, all. And continuing in this way. expecting that distraction will arise at times. Simply returning back to observing part, observing all. If there's judgment, it often has an emotional flavor. So noticing that as a part. And each time we're drawn to a particular part, taking a moment to soak in, to know that part's identity. How has the mind separated and defined this particular piece of experience? Noticing if we're treating this one small experience as better or worse, or the fact that the mind moved towards observing a part. Neither part or all are better. They're simply different shapes of experience. Now we're going to make a slight transition. We'll continue the same practice, although we'll begin to look at the part, in particular, of a self. We might call this a sub-mind, or a self, or a part. In particular, one that tends to be sticky, difficult in our lives. Doesn't have to be the most difficult self that arises. But often in our lives we need to navigate selves which are less resourced. The part that feels hopeless or feels like it needs to protect. The part that might be triggered when we visit our family. Picking one of these selves, these parts, and simply taking a moment to observe it exactly as we were before, knowing its character. And then letting it become subsumed in a larger experience of awareness. In this case, awareness may expand to include all of our sensory experience. But we can know if we've been able to expand past a particular part, a particular self. If it feels like we no longer identify with that self, it no longer feels like this self is me. Rather, this is the experience of a self occurring among all these other senses. We're often not used to having contact with a self without identifying with it. So if we find that we're pulled into the gravitational force of any particular self, getting clear on what that's like. This is the worldview of this particular self. And like most selves, it likely reads most sensory data as neutral. It'll tell us that this is how it always is. This is your perspective. But simply attuning to the flavor of this self, the mind state or filter that it's experiencing the world through. This allows us to step back just slightly and begins our path to expand out to an awareness of all of our sense data once again. knowing again that this part, even if it's as large as a self experience, is simply part within a whole. Soaking in to know its character, to know its worldview. And then using the principle of contrast to expand awareness to hold all the material we can detect. In order to know this particular experience, the mind must compare it to something else, something which is not this. So using that tendency to allow awareness to expand. Whatever arises, being curious. Whatever resistance arises, letting it fold into that curiosity. And getting to know the character of this part, this self, from the perspective of the self, that which identifies. This is me, my worldview. And knowing it from the perspective of awareness. Curious, open, not needing anything to be different. Neither is better. simply exploring. And allowing a little bit of light to enter the eyes. Staying with the practice, staying in stillness. Eventually allowing the eyes to rest on one point as they fully open. Again, noticing the awareness that absorbs everything, including the self. And the self which has its own gravity, its own worldview. And letting this moment be our guide on how to bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Okay. So making the adjustments you need to allow the body to be comfortable. Unfolding yourself if you need to. Okay, folks. So there are a couple ways to find out what your experience was like. One is to bore into your head with a hammer drill and listen very closely. But this doesn't give me that much information. Really, the most efficient way to find out what your experience was like is from you. And this connection we have is really only facilitated by your voice. So feel free in the chat to let me know what that was like. What happened? Thank you, Farzad. I had a beautiful time too. Feel free to let us know in the chat or let us know in the Discord. Let me see if my new command works. Nope. Okay. So I think I have to do the whole thing. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Oh, apparently it has to be capital. There you go. Thank you, Tumlin, for that Discord link. If you're seeing that on the stream, off the stream, all over the place. And we have a voice chat there because it's often easier to get into some more deep convo if I actually know, if I can speak to you, ask questions. Okay, folks, so what was that like? What happened and what are you like now? Let me see if I can assess this microphone thing because it does sound a little different. So yeah, let me know. What was that like? Check, check. Okay, well, I don't know what happened there. Okay, folks, so, yeah, what was that like? What happened, and what are you like now? You know, it's funny, we weren't streaming for a while to our other platforms, which is very silly, but we should be now. So you could be seeing this on YouTube, you could be seeing it on Facebook, but you had not seen it for some time until now. Okay. Let's see here. Loggerbot. Okay. So, folks, what on earth was that like? What the heck? What's happening here? Okay. You can't see what's happening on my side. But I can. Okay, so what was that like, folks? No pressure, though. If folks don't want to chat, that's no problem with me. I'm going to see what's happening over here. If we got people chit-chatting like kitty cats. Cool. Okay, folks. So, yeah, that's fine. No pressure. We're going to, in that case, if folks don't want to discuss, that's not a problem. But we'll come back. We'll do it again. We're going to be back here in less than 48 hours here on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to be continuing this theme of exploring the multiple self model. I'm going to check one more thing before I jump off. No, I did not want that. I'm not used to working on a PC. Let's see here. That is not what I wanted. Okay. Oh, there we are. Oh, Farzad, thank you. Farzad said, Janusz, I have a question about working with subtle mental image.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, Farzad, thank you. Okay, subtle mental image. I have been hanging out with equanimity for a few months now. A few days ago, I realized the body or self-image is the only category that seems to remain stable. Do you have any suggestions about working with that and getting it into flow? Okay, so this is a fundamental question you're asking, because there's two things. One is the specific situation. How do you deal with, or how do you relate to see-in and equanimity experiences, and how do you potentially take that and make it more flowing, you could say. And a larger question, which is when you're observing something that we're experiencing as static, how do you absorb that into flow? I'm going to answer the second question because it'll cover the first question. So something that I think is very important is that often when we experience what we'll call flow, which is effectively just the dynamics of our sensory experience, we will label that, or rather, we'll notice it most through like changes happening in the body. So, in Buddhism, they talk about impermanence. So there's this impermanent quality, everything's changing. So the change quality is what we typically associate with flow, but that's a little bit of a linguistic problem. And personally, I like less than the word flow or impermanence. I like the word dynamics, because dynamics, and actually, Raquel and I were talking about this, and the words around energy are actually more accurate, but they're too cringy because it's like, oh, my energy stream is like, whatever. But basically, it's like literally from, thermodynamics, we're experiencing different forms of energy transforming. So, but I'll use the word dynamics because I think it proves a point or shows a point. So I want you to do something if you're watching this. Take your two hands, and now it looks like we're talking about energy and praying. So just take your two hands and then press them together. So I'm pressing with quite a bit of pressure. I'm going to press with enough that it actually begins to shake, right? My hands can't stay still because I'm pushing so hard. And then relax them, right? So typically, you can do it, you don't have to do it that hard, but when you feel this thing, what does that feel like? Does it feel like it's flowing? Does it feel like it's stable? Well, it feels like it's relatively stable. Typically, people would read it that way. But what you're actually experiencing, that stability, is created out of two forces moving in opposite directions. That is very dynamic, but it is not flowing. So when we find anything that we experience as not flow. Observe it as forces coming in contact with each other. Why is it? Like, what is it about the body's experience that seems like it's so stable? Something you can observe now as you're listening to this. Notice that right now, okay, just like feel your body, physically feeling the body. Okay, there it is. And notice that there are places in the body where there is, we actually don't detect any sensation, but the body sort of pieces it all together and says, okay, here's a little, sensation on your head and your elbow and your thing. And especially when we're very still, this becomes much more apparent. If we're moving, we can sort of feel a lot of the body, but when we're still, there are parts of the body, often in the torso or different places, that you can't feel, but the body sort of pieces it all together. Well, now we're talking about dynamics. You have some empty space experientially and some full space experientially, and those are creating the contrast that shows us, okay, this is the experience of the body. You can also just detect outside of the body. Well, my hand, I can feel it, up to this edge right around here. It's like sort of that's where the hand is felt. And then because of that, I can know, well, the edge of sensation stops right there for me. So the sensation stops there. And so I can detect that there is an edge. And with that edge, at that point, it's like when someone says, imagine the edge of the universe. And now what creates that edge and what creates that edge? The mind can actually know using that same sensory experience. So I can use the physical sensory experience and feel up to there. And the mind can keep feeling beyond the sensation of the hand using feeling. Okay, I'm getting way too far afield. The premise here is notice that things that are stable are often stable because they're forces pressing against each other. That is one of your best case scenarios. You don't have to know what the forces are either, because you know their interaction, right? So let's imagine that I'm an alien and all I can see is these hands pressing against each other. I have no access to the shoulder muscles, this kind of thing. This is our experiment. We only have access to this. Well, I don't know what's causing that, right? It's a combination of things. It's one part, muscle in the body, one part intention of a human being, all these different parts coming together that are actually causing this. But I precisely know, without any question, what their interaction is. Their interaction is this sensation of pressure in the hands. So we don't need to know exactly what the parts are, and often we can't exactly peel them apart. But by knowing those two forces or several forces are coming together to create this sense of solidity, that can be helpful. That said, part of the equanimity experience is not that everything is gone. Part of it is that there's no need for anything to be there. So that's worth recognizing that, sometimes the body just experience is there. But also, if you want to do it on a very literal sense, if you want to create flow there, watch any particular part of the body. Or here's what you can do. In my guided meditations around C, I talk about there's a sense of a horizon, like everything is sort of on a horizon. If I turn my head, the horizon stays, so the mind is holding this horizon. Look at or observe anything that holds, that is space, and observe that and notice that again, at the edge of whatever that thing is, it's emptier than that experience. So if you hold all of those things together, often that edge, that particular piece of the horizon, will melt into the sort of non-edge around it in that way. So that's another way to do it. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully it wasn't so layered that it didn't add up for you. Yeah, what else? What else is coming up for folks? Oh, I'm getting a call live from our tech support. Let's see what our tech support has to say live. Tomlin, are you there? Oh, that was a call I tried to make before. I thought that was like him calling me now, being like, something's gone terribly wrong. Your whole live stream is literally on fire. Okay, folks, great question. Thank you for that, Farzad. And, okay, Farzad also says, the image of the body sensation is stable. For instance, I do body sweeping, and there is a mental image of the body as I sweep. Of course, I don't experience all the sensations of the body at that point, but the image refines the sensation. Okay, so same answer, but I want to refine it in particular for you. Again, whatever is stable is often caused by something. This is the classic, cause and effect process. One thing that often people who do body sweeping don't consider, or just is not at the forefront of their mind, is that body sweeping is a see-in activity, because we're moving by location. It is located here, is located there, is located there. It requires a degree of see-in. We think, oh no, I'm just, I'm just feeling in this area. Well, the in this area part is see-in. Anything that is, any sense of space, location, arrangement, something is far, something is close. Okay, right now your mind can create a relationship between these two things. Okay, they're about that far apart. The mind is required to do that. Space is created by the mind. Space is not, this is something very hard for people to understand. This is something that's very important in sculpture, especially conceptual sculpture and minimalism, etc. Space is created in the human mind. Something is sharp because it's sharper than the body. Something is big because it's bigger than the body. Something is small because it can be held in the hand. So all space, all location, all arrangement of objects is of the human mind. And so when you're moving through, you are almost, I don't want to say inherently, but you are the at least two of the pressures that are creating that is, you could say the intention is one pressure. See-in, which is just a sort of another sensory experience. If you're not super familiar with see-in, I have some guided meditations I can recommend to you. And see-in is another force, and another force putting this together is the body sensation, which seems to reinforce and trigger see-in, which is called proprioception. So a feeling sensation then triggers a see-in sensation. But these forces together are making this process solid, or seem solid, or come together. That's sort of some of the pieces that are coming together. So what I would suggest is just know that that's occurring. Know that see-in, especially if you're just doing body sweeping, it's a little tough because typically I tell people to expand their awareness out larger. Often they say when you get to a certain place in body scanning, if you're going vertically, is to switch to horizontal, or to switch to, there's numerous different ways that you can go, and you can go in spirals, and you can, all these different things, which are traditional, which are part of even the Goenka tradition, if that's what you're referring to. But what I would suggest, I'm going to give you a link here. I don't even know if we have this link. Maybe Tomalin's online and he knows that we have this link. It's a link to the guided meditations. If you already have them, then you know. But it's the 15 guided meditations that are sensory clarity, and to do the ones on seeing. This will typically give you a sense of all of the pieces together, and you can see the mind holding the horizon. You can see the mind creating space around us. And okay, that's the folder. Okay, I'm going to copy a link for you here. Copy link. Excellent. Okay, here is the link for you. If you don't already have these are the 15 guided meditations that I use with all of my students. I, for some reason, think that you do have these, I'm pretty sure. So there are 3, I believe, in there on see-in, so that might be helpful to get some really some clarity. And what it tends to also do is help us just more easily deconstruct. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, excellent. If you have any more questions, of course, please let them spill. Otherwise, we will hit the eject button for today. Great to see everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. If we finally fixed it, if you're here on Facebook, or if you are watching on YouTube, thanks for joining. And we will be back here in less than 48 hours. So folks, thank you so much for joining. Always lovely to have you. I'm going to put on this ending music here. Thanks again. Thanks for being here.